Before we start, I would like to ask your help to do two things. First, tell a friend or two who you think might like the show. And second, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The more reviews the show gets, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Thank you, and now on to the show.
They make the trek out to Burning Man for a week and a day. After a lot of work, oh, there's a lot of play. Party, 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 drama, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch. Year after year, they come back to scratch that itch. They all say their lives have been changed. After many years, lives have been rearranged. That change is what this show is all about. You'll see the impact of Burning Man up and out. So sit back, relax, and cancel all your plans. These are the stories about the shadow of the man.
Hello, and welcome to the Shadow of the Man Show. I'm your host, Andy. Good day, it's that Andy. Today, our guest is Monique Schiess.
Oh,
Am I pronouncing Schiess? Ah, okay.
Yes.
Sorry. So we were just talking offline. So I'm in Hawaii and she's in South Africa. Like you are actually the farthest distance from on the planet from me. This is my farthest guest so far. I did record Paradox Pollock, and he lives in Bali. The timing, trying to figure out the time zones was fun. That'll come out in October. But and actually, this is supposed to come out September 1st. So if anyone's listening to this in the Exodus line, it's okay. You're going to make it through, and you're going to have a fun time listening to Monique Schiess. So welcome.
Cheese.
Schiess. Sorry.
Mm.
Cheese, like cheese.
It's fine. People make mistakes. Scheiß actually means shit in German, whereas Schieß means shoot. Because my family from a line of Hans people, yes.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay. So what was your first Burning Man, and what got you to go to Burning Man? You said you were actually in Hawaii, like when you decided you were first going to go to Burning Man?
Yeah. Um, so my first Burning Man was 2004. Um, I I'd been working kind of in the kind of creative field in Cape Town, and a friend of mine had returned from America, and he'd been to Burning Man, and he told me about this thing called Burning Man, a friend called Ralph Borland. And so it was kind of in my peripheral kind of vision, sitting in the back of my head. And then I met a man who I was later to marry, and we were traveling he used to live in San Francisco for a while, South African guy. And we were traveling, and he had said, yeah, he'd been to Burning Man a couple of times, and he said, yeah, no, I'm done with Burning Man. And I was like, well, I'm not. I'd like to go. So we extended our trip and went. Interestingly enough, though, being the youngest of five, there's a certain amount of kind of optimal neglect that happens of the fifth child. And I'd never learned to ride a bike. And I was
Really?
like, well, yeah. I mean, I could fly an airplane before I could ride a bicycle. So
Wow.
yeah, so we went and hired a crappy bike in Hawaii, and I learned how to ride because I was like, well, I'm not going to Burning Man without knowing how to ride a bike. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You wouldn't want to like break your ankle like the first day either, you know.
yeah, no,
That would be
no,
bad.
it's suboptimal to break your ankle on the first
Yeah.
day. Yeah, it was a heady experience riding in my glitter catsuit on the playa for the first time.
Wow. Wow. So that was 2004? I'm trying to remember. So yeah, and I'm
The man was on a geodesic dome.
okay, yeah.
That was what the
Yeah.
man base was. Yeah,
I'm not sure that was either the year I met Jenny. Well, you know Jenny Kay, right? We're good friends.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember if it was 2003 or 2004 I met her. That might have been the year. I don't know. Anyway, side note. Um, yeah, so And how often have you been since then?
Well, to Burning Man,
Yeah.
has it been 6 times? Oh four, oh eight, oh four, oh six, oh eight, 16, 13, 22. Yeah, 6 times. I've been to Burning Man 6 times. But then
Okay.
obviously there's been a fair amount of Africa burns in between.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
talk about, I know it's difficult coming from Hawaii to go to Burning Man, but South Africa, how long a flight is that? I mean, even.
Well, usually if you're getting the cheap flights, there's about 3 stops on the way, and so it kind of takes about, a day or two to get
Wow.
to the States, yeah.
Wow.
And then obviously the challenging exchange rate is not something to sniff at either.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So when you first went, was it just you and your boyfriend, or like did you have other friends
yeah.
you camped with?
Well, no, he had a fantastic crew in San Francisco from when he lived there. They had run a camp called Camp Juicy. Um, but that year in 2004, everyone had kind of clubbed together to make a mutant vehicle, which was called Night Juice. Um, yeah, and which it was an old Cadillac, and we painted it and mounted a moon on the top and a chariot, and it was a fun little project.
Hmm.
Um, and we had a lot of fun. It was great.
Wow. Um,
Yeah.
so what happened after that? I mean, it said it was a couple of years before you went back to Burning Man, but how did Africa Burn come about? Or what did you do when you
Funny.
got there?
Well, when I got back, I've actually recently found a diary entry that I wrote in my diary in October of 2004, and it was I kind of had felt that I was a little bit bored of what I was doing at the time and wanted to try something different. And so number 3 on the list was try and start a burn in South Africa. Um, and so by 2007 it had happened. It was kind of also again sitting, it was gestating in the back of my mind. Um, and then Paul Jorgensen arrived in South Africa, and he also wanted to do the same thing. And then a kind of a loose grouping of kind of weird renegades, as it usually turns out with these things, clubbed together and started AfrikaBurn.
Wow. I mean, I take it just start off as just Africa Burn, right? Did you guys like socially just kind of get together, or like little meet and greets, or you know?
Well, we'd kind of been so we went to our first Richard and well, I went to my first burn in 2004.
Uh-huh.
Richard, who was my boyfriend at the time, but then we got married. We've since been divorced though. Um, we had a group of friends and we spoke about it a lot, and we did a slideshow at a gallery, kind of educating people about the art of Burning Man. And slowly we just started snowballing it because that was the subject of the conversation. And we managed to get most of those friends to Burning Man in 2006. Um, and the installation at the time was, what's going to be able to travel. So I thought that a distinctly African thing would be to have a beautiful herd of giraffes out on the playa at dusk. So we were the giraffes at dusk, and we made these giraffe outfits out of high density foam and then we'd go out as this big herd of giraffes, which is a very simple thing to do, but oh my God, was the effect astounding.
Yeah,
Oh my God, I don't think I've ever had so much fun in my life.
I
It
know.
was
That
such
sounds
fun, and
incredible.
it had such a strong effect. People and the interactions that we had. So like obviously animal control found us,
Huh?
and there was just all this like extended like tomfoolery and play and kind of like wrestling us to the ground and us running around, and anything that looked like a predator would try and stalk us, and it was it was just extended. It went on and on and on and on and on. And actually at that point the giraffes were out on the playa at dusk, and I used to I grew up in the bush and excuse me, I used to be a game ranger.
Oh wow.
So that image of kind of like that classical African image of, beautiful animals walking through the plains at dusk was, a thing. And we managed to recreate it in the most obscure way
Wow,
at Burning
that's
Man.
incredible.
But Maid Marian drove past us in her cat car and she said, "Oh my God, you've got to go and speak to Larry." And we were like, "Oh, okay." So she said he's standing there in first camp, so we all walked there and we met Larry. Um, and actually, Paul Jorgensen then heard about these giraffes from South Africa who'd come to the burn, and he then contacted us when he was back in South Africa, and we kind of pooled resources.
So who's Paul Jorgensen? Like,
Paul Jorgensen's one of the co-founders of AfrikaBurn. He
oh,
then he was here for 2 years, and then he moved to Australia and got involved in Burning Seed.
oh,
Burning Seed, Blazing Swan, and one of the Australian burns, yeah.
wow. So he just travels around the world starting regional events.
Totally, yeah, yeah.
Wow, where's he from?
South Africa originally,
Oh, really? Huh.
and he left, I think in the 80s or yeah, in the 80s to avoid conscription, went to America.
Mm.
It was the dark days of apartheid. Got involved in Burning Man. I think he was with the Gamelon, and yeah, Gamelon X, the monkey chanting, and there
Yeah,
was there was a
yeah,
there was a
yeah,
village, yeah. And
yeah.
then yeah, then in the early 2000s he returned to South Africa wanting to bring a burn to South Africa.
Wow.
And we had a mutual friend. I used to do an event called the Mother City Queer Project, um, which was celebrating our new constitution, and it was a very queer party and a collaborative and celebratory and art-based, turning waste into art and kind of occupying old apartheid government buildings and turning them queer. And we used to sell tickets through an obscure little gallery called the Hennel Gallery, and Robert Weineck, who used to sell tickets for us, who ran the Hennel Gallery, used to go to school with Paul Jorgensen. So that's how the kind of contact between Paul and I happened, was through Robert and a woman called Leon Fisser.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we just started having public meetings, kind of utilizing kind of our pre-existing kind of networks of
Mhm.
creatives and renegades and anyone who was interested, obviously,
Well, there
So
must have
so
not have been too many people locally there who had actually been to Burning Man, right? Although, I mean,
I
I'm
I
sure
mean
there's
I
a lot
have
of
to say
interested
that,
people.
but that was one of the kind of alchemical moments, was at the very first Africa Burn, where I mean I think that we thought that we'd have about 250 people, and kind of
Uh,
900 arrived in the
what?
desert in this extremely remote
Wow.
place. So we got a bit of a fright, and had to dig a lot more toilets. So and one of the interesting things was to see the kind of magic that happened where not a critical mass of people had been to the burn. I think there were probably about 10 people who'd been to the burn out of those 900.
Really?
And yeah. And so for me, that's always kind of proved the theory that, like the reason why these burns work so well is it's the model. It's our wild sides are sitting just below the surface and want out.
Yeah,
Our
yeah, yeah.
our creativity wants out. It's not, and it's just you don't necessarily need to be acculturated. You just need to have the loamy and fertile soil in which that part that wants to come out of you can come out. And the burn model provides that, or did provide that. There
Mhm.
are some challenges now, though.
Well,
Yeah.
how does 10 burners acculturate the other 890? I mean,
I think my point is that they don't have to, is
oh, really?
because yeah, I mean, look, also the other thing is that the handful of us that were starting Africa Burn, so it was myself and my History with Mother City Queer project. Robert is an old handyman of the arts, like, they've done all sorts of weird renegade fake galleries, bad galleries, events. Leon Fisser, who was Black Lil, who did these things called the Mul parties, the Mul plus. Mul in Afrikaans means mad. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah. Mike Suss was involved in the trans community, trans party community. So everyone is and also don't forget South Africa. Everyone is accustomed to living outside and camping.
Hmm.
It's a very robust grouping of people. Um,
So it's all second
and
nature to them, basically.
absolutely. And
Oh.
also, we started just by, mailing, mailing our old mailing lists from our various kind of groupings of people, our little communities that of which there was a lot of overlap. And
Hmm.
yeah, and it spontaneously combusted.
Wow. So you
Yeah,
said like there was a
no,
very just fertile kind of ground to plant this little seed in, and it just took off.
yeah.
for people, I'm sure most burners listening to this, but there's some people who've never been to Burning Man. Um, Africa Burn, I think it is the largest regional burn out there
I
now,
believe
right?
so. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's been so
yeah.
far. Wow. I mean, how nowadays, how large is Africa Burn? How many people go?
I think that the last event was 10,000. So, and that's just been, yeah. But
Wow.
we topped out at 14,000, and we then brought the numbers down, you know. Um, the event grew exponentially. It was just astounding. It was like I got a big fright. For me, when we had the first event, I was like, oh well, I'm going to be busy for about, you know, a couple of months, and then I'm going to get back to doing other things. Not a, it was a, it was quite a severe wind tunnel for 15 to 17 years.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because I know in the early
So
days of Burning Man in the Black Rock Desert, it was like basically each year would just kind of double, be like 500 and 1,000 and two
yeah,
thousand and four
totally,
thousand,
totally.
like
Yeah,
was
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah. It
wow.
was it was it was something like that. But the our team didn't have the capacity to hold too many like the event was growing exponentially, and the organizational kind of capacity to do so was not. And so we were
Uh,
run to the ground. It was very
wow.
it
Lot
was
of
a
burnout or
it's been a rollicking adventure. It was a runaway juggernaut, basically.
yeah.
So in 2012 was the first year that we limited numbers. And then after 2017 was the year that we actually actively brought our numbers down. We
Oh,
were
so it's like
like,
we limited the ticket sales, or you
yeah,
only sell
totally.
so many.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And then obviously after COVID, there was a big knock. So the first event after COVID was in 2022. And we had moved to our new site, and we had gone down from like 27 staff down to 7. And so we also, COVID laws hadn't changed. So we were doing this hugely on risk to plan an event. Um,
Oh,
so we had to plan 3 different kind of like city layouts, just in case in case they said we could do pods of 2,000, or we could do pods of 500, or and having a separate medical facility at each one of them. It was such a nightmare. Anyway, so that year in 2022, we also brought it down to 6,000. Um, but it's since climbed.
so I mean, does anybody do it like? I take it you guys you have some sort of organization, right? I mean, it's like like
It's a not-for-profit.
yeah, not for, but I mean, does anybody actually do this year round? Like, is this kind of like their job? I
Oh yeah, absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, you would have, I would imagine, like just
Yeah.
the logistics and because when we
Well,
were doing things here in Hawaii, I mean, I think the biggest we only had 3 events in the jungle, and it was the biggest was like around 650, and yeah, I mean, it was a hefty amount to do like in part times, like while everyone's working, but
yeah,
just imagining like when it's in the thousands, it's like,
yeah,
ooh, yeah,
yeah.
that's a
Well,
lot of work.
I was the kind of first full-time coordinator of most things, and I wasn't able to do so because my husband was supporting me
Hmm.
at the time. So and then it kind of led, with the exponential growth of the event, and also South Africa being a very different climate in which a burn was growing. We don't, the economic yeah, the economic environment is completely different to that in America. Um, there's radical Gini coefficient. I mean, we're the winners of the Gini coefficient stakes in the world,
What's
the
that?
gap between the gap between rich and poor, right?
Oh, okay.
So the result of that is that your volunteers were either wealthy or extremely poor, and people in the middle were not able to volunteer as much time. It's just there's a different anatomy to starting a burn here than it I suppose, not that anyone started a burn consciously in America. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about the burn is that it, just an accident of history and different elements, it evolved. So
Yeah.
we didn't have any intention to grow big. We were just being experimental. We were like, let's give this a try, and it just exploded, which was a surprise. So we were constantly trying to catch up with this exponential growth. Um, and then it reached a complete inflection point in 2011, and we were like, we can't actually continue doing this on a volunteer basis. It's growing too big. Like our capacity to do it is, people are burning out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so we had a big kind of conference with Stephen Rasper and Harley
Dubois.
Dubois came out.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it was the first time that Burning Man was okay with allowing a regional to actually pay people, and I suppose the die was cast. But it
Well, I'm
was,
sure you
yeah, and
reach
that
a
just that
certain
just
point. I mean, it's just you have to, right? I mean, like
yeah,
if you're investing all of this time and energy and effort, I mean, it's
yeah,
like it's unreasonable to just expect it's like, oh no, you're just going to be a volunteer. Whereas,
exactly.
in San Francisco and like working for Black Rock City, like, oh no, this is a year-round project and this is our job
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah. And so for a long time, and I mean, from 2007 for me, it was a year-round project. I did nothing else, and for
Wow.
17 years, yeah, and an amazing project, a kind of a rollicking adventure, but you couldn't. And at the time, it was interesting because Burning Man was not a not-for-profit, and we were a not-for-profit from 2007. That's how we started.
Yeah.
And so when they were like, oh, it's supposed to be a volunteer, it's supposed to be a gift, and we were like, okay, and then why are you not a not-for-profit, and why are you paying yourselves?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that there's always this like rich kind of argument that can happen. I know, interestingly enough, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that kind of inflection point mirrors kind of an inflection point that I feel that Burns need to look at now as well, which is if everything else is being paid, why are the artists not being paid? Or are they being paid? Like there's these when the name of your
You're
podcast is
opening the
Shadow of the Man.
door. Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, there are shadow parts of the burn which are what's the internal Gini coefficient of burns? Why do some people get paid and everyone else must volunteer? And so I don't know the answer, but I do know that it needs to be spoken about, especially with the extremely fantastic, amazing brains that are involved in this project.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's sort of how it all started, like out there in the playa in the Black Rock Desert. It was just kind of people kind of coming together, and then
yeah,
like you said, it's like yeah, I think you need to have like the nucleus of a certain number of people who are like coordinating things like year round, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a difficult thing because I mean, I'm sure nowadays a lot of people it's like, oh, you know how much long I spent building this art car or this theme camp or I mean whatever art that they're making. I mean, it's astounding to me just the amount of like money and time like people put in these
yeah,
projects. Like
absolutely, yeah.
it's incredible.
Mm.
Like it, I remember you remember CORE, right? The Circle of
Yes, the
Regional
core, the core
Refugees.
project, yeah.
Yeah, so I was the basic inspiration of that the first year, right? And
Oh
so
wow.
I kind of that's kind of what I do is like I get balls rolling and then I go to the top of a hill and like I roll something down. I'm like, hey, let's see where it goes. And it went pretty far, but that was actually my last year, 2011. But then I heard in 2012 it happened again, but then people were telling me they're like, oh yeah, like individual regionals were spending like $50,000. I was like,
Wow.
what? You know, like
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
You know, like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm.
But yeah,
Fundamentally, the thing is an experiment. So you can try things and then they go in that direction and then they stop, or they go in that direction and then they stop, or they go
yeah,
in that direction and they accelerate and they snowball. And,
yeah. So
as
so
long as you
for Africa Burn, like so your participants, are they all just like local or like from South Africa? Like how many people do you get from like, who travel there?
so recently, well, in more recent years, the international contingent has grown dramatically.
Really?
Yeah, a good 50, and I'm sure we don't have the stats from this year, but the it's been 50% for a very long time, hovering around the 50% mark.
50.
Yeah, yeah, 50.
Wow.
And there's a lot of expats living in South Africa. The thing is that it's
Really?
because of its size, it's very, it's kind of, I, we, a lot of, we used to call them time travelers. Um, because it's people wanting to experience Burning Man in the 90s, they come to Africa Burn because it's so much smaller and a little bit rougher around the edges and a little bit more kind of lawless.
Huh.
Um, and
You
I'm
guys have
and I
a
don't mean
drive-by shooting range?
no, we don't. We did never have that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, so and they participate beautifully as well. And because also the other thing is that it's a much cheaper burn to come to because our currency is extremely weak. So you're
Hmm.
getting a big bang for your dollar or your euro or your pound or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just wondering, like,
yeah.
logistically how that works, because it's like if half your participants are coming, it's like how do they bring their like theme camps and like, well, you can't bring an art car, but or just,
People do well because
really?
because because there's people who Africa Burn is their burn. They don't, and so there are storage facilities. There's art cars all over the show. There's infrastructure. We've also got a container program with the new
Wow.
land. That was one of the things is to be able to support the creative community, and also it's just far more environmentally friendly than rather than trucking stuff up and down between Cape Town and Johannesburg and back. So so people can buy containers and then they leave them on site, and so their stuff is on storage in storage, kind of close to the actual event site.
Hmm.
Um,
Do
and so
international burners like help like I don't know if you have like oh the international tickets are more expensive than like the local tickets or just like the container program. I mean in some ways it's like maybe it will help like subsidize more like local South Africans who couldn't quite afford it or
Yeah, we've got what are called May Day tickets, which is a ticket price which is far higher than the cost that it is to have people on site. And then those subsidize directly what is called our anarchy program, which was specifically designed to deal with the issues around radical inclusion, particularly in the South African instance, where low income is different in this country than it is, in America. So for the first couple of years, we had the same tiered system as Burning Man with low income tickets, but low income in this country is relative. So we designed the Nati program, which sells tickets at a 10% of the cost. Um, so it's extremely heavily subsidized, and associated with that, there are access grants, so transport to site, welfare grants. So, because there's one thing about kind of dealing with barriers to entry, which very often people think are only financial. Um, but agency while you're on site is another thing. Um, then the other thing is that if there are projects in the grant assessment for awarding creative grants for creative projects, a very heavy weighting is on how inclusive your team is and the kind of reaching out across classic old South African barriers.
mm.
Um, and it's really working. Those interventions work. Um, and I don't think anyone who is idealistic or any organization who positions himself as idealistic can be passive about integration, especially if you've got a principle called radical inclusion. Um, and we changed the wording on our radical inclusion principle um, to reflect structural inequality and historical inequality and structural and historical and current issues, and we endeavor to so it's everyone can be a part of the burn
Hmm.
um, to but we're gonna endeavor to overcome those barriers to entry.
Wow. So how diverse is Africa Burn? I mean, it's
Certainly not diverse enough,
hmm
but it's changing. It is definitely changing, which is good. And so I think that's also a lesson to the default world is that proper interventions work, you know,
hmm
and we must constantly strive and endeavor to do more.
yeah. And do you guys do events like I mean outside of Africa Burn, like or something like meet and greets or other like events like during the year? And I mean, also South Africa is a large country too. I mean, you must have
Mm.
like different groups in different cities or.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Johannesburg has got a very strong burner community. And they self-organize their own decompressions and a lot of in recent years the temple has been built in Johannesburg and so that's been a big kind of like pulling together of the international community. I mean, the Johannesburg community. But I mean, the community is the community. I mean, like there's foreigners, there's locals, there's all sorts of people, who kind
Hmm.
of smash together. But physically, it was placed in Johannesburg, and it was certainly supported massively by the Johannesburg community. But I mean, it's the self-organizing principle. People must organize themselves. So there are, and then there's now a new little burn in Namibia. There's other little
Really?
burns around the country as well. Yeah. But we almost like a microcosm of the States where AfrikaBurn is the big one that people come to, and then there's all these smaller ones that kind of
I
are
love
around
that.
the yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I'm sure you know this already, but we call the we call Burning Man the Gerlach Regional.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of interesting. It almost has like a kind of, I was reading this somewhere. It's like the Black Rock City sort of has like a gravity to it, where it's like maybe if that was like the sun, then all of the other regions would be like the planets. But they kind of like perhaps without Black Rock City, they would all just sort of fly off and do their own different things, But I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
at least it was like initial like inspiration, But I think
Yeah.
it's kind of a two-way street, I mean, but
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, for me personally, the that narrative it kind of irritates me a little bit.
all right.
Yeah, you can't absolutely cannot deny that the magic that happened in Black Rock City and happens in Black Rock City is magic. It's a thing that is extremely important. But I must say, when we have a lot of discussions on the regionals and workshops and stuff, the absolute concentration on the words burning man irritate me because it's actually burns that are doing the work in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily only Burning Man. And I think that there's almost a hierarchy there which I don't think fits uh, according to the principles of what this thing is,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have an absolutely mind-blowing experience at a at a 10-person tiny burn event, more than at like at Burning Man. You don't
80,000.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, at 80,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
certainly 80,000 could be quite challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll definitely have more personal. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why, the regionals, I mean, for many years and for people also now who are like, oh, they want to experience something like a smaller scale. It's, or kind of like you said, like a time machine, like kind of going back in time. But yeah, I think it's, I've always kind of thought like it's just one of those kind of laws of large numbers. It's like once things kind of start getting big, they start just getting out of control, and or things just kind of start like going in directions, or like you said, like even your experience with like with AfrikaBurn, it's just your levels of like in the organization, like what people could put in wasn't matching like your attendance, and it's things can get out of hand. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, these 100 person, 500 person, it's like it's very nice actually. It's more like human in level like interactions you have with each other.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
But I think it's also it's how you engage with it. And there's so many variables that could create that transformative experience,
Hmm.
because in its best iteration, a burn is a portal through which you leap, and it doesn't matter whether it's the first time that you put up a tent or camped before, or whether it's the first time you've expressed yourself by putting a piece of art out there, whether it's the first time you dropped your kit and ran around naked, whether it's there's so many different ways, or you found a new genre, or you danced all night, or you slept all night and got silly in the day. Whatever the expression, whatever it is, we can't control that. We've just got to make sure,
Hmm.
our job is to make sure that the soil is in integrity and is fertile, that there's a lot of different minerals and organic matter that you can draw from according to whatever you need to have a beautiful experience. And I think that that's where my irritation with the absolute focus on Burning Man specifically, just in discussion, like Burning Man is amazing. I'm not cutting it down at all. But that's where my frustration with the the single-minded focus on Burning Man, Burning Man, Burning Man, Burning Man comes in. I mean, even when I hear it in my head, I can hear it in the American accent. It's like Burning Man. It's like chanting almost. I'm just like, okay, God, stop that shit. It's because it's burns. It's burns that do the work, you know. And Jamie Wheal wrote this really nice piece about he brought it down to three different Burning Mans, and he's like, there's the Burning Man that is astounding. You get to the playa and you're like blown away by big art and amazing things and beautiful scenery and this and that and blah blah. Um, it's Instagrammable. It's pretty. It's like gorgeous. You have some fun. Then there's the Burning Man that where it's inspired you to move into like to do something else. It's inspiring. You're like, wow, shit, that's possible. I can do that. Blah, blah, blah. But the one that we should be aiming for is the Burning Man that cracks you open.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
not necessarily an easy thing. So that's why convenience culture is a threat to the burn projects, the project of the burn, which is in its best iteration to be a portal as transformative space. I always just call the burn a tool. Africa Burn is a tool.
Mm.
Burning Man is a tool for change. And for me, the big point, the inflection point for me, where I believe that burns are at the moment, is the question of there's this mythopoetic moment in the history of Burning Man, which I love. It captured my imagination completely when we were starting Africa Burn, was where Michael they stand at the Black Rock City Zone trip where they've just taken the man out to Black Rock City for the first time with the Cacophony Society. Michael draws a line in the sand and he says, on the other side of this line, everything will be different.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
And 30 years on for Burning Man, or 32, whatever it is, and 17 years on for Africa Burn, it's just a question. Is it not time to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we're stepping back over into the default world and saying on the other side of this line, everything will be different because of everything we've learned back there? And certainly for me, my involvement in Burns, in getting Africa Burn started, in kind of, being deeply involved in it for so many years, was informed by that. I saw it as a tool for change, not just and revelry and fun, etc. So important. But it's festival as a portal, not as entertainment. And we've got to be very, very careful about resting on our laurels and thinking that we are just there because we've got a formula that works. Because it's getting a little bit formulaic. And certainly I do know that a hell of a lot of change has happened in the default world due to the experimental portals that people leap through at the burns. Um, but I want to accelerate that. I want to amplify that part of it. I want to challenge people that actually it's about and that's purely because the default world is in such a fucking shit show right now. And it has been for a
Yeah.
long time. The shit
Yeah.
show has been building and it's crescendoing, you
Yeah.
know. And like Larry said, never waste a good crisis. And then there was another thing that he pointed out is that why is experimentation so important and why is that creative energy so important and collaboration, etc. is because when shit goes down, we have a lot of ideas lying around. And the burn does have a lot of ideas lying around. And so we've got to be extremely honest about saying, what about the burn is emulating the default world to the extent that it's potentially losing some of its portal breakthrough effects? And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that asking the right question is about us is leads to finding the right answer. And so I'm not just like bearing down on Burning Man. I feel like every burn will reach this inflection point, and every social movement reaches that inflection point, you know.
Hmm.
And there are
Hmm.
core questions like, does anarchy scale? You know, is this just inevitable? Is this, and yeah. But so funnily enough, some deep shadow work is important for all burns to make sure that we are remaining relevant, I think, in terms of changing the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, that's my sermon for the morning.
Yeah, no, I mean that's incredible. I mean that's totally true. I mean and it's kind of what we do with the regionals. I'm sure what we're saying like people are seeing an exodus right now, thinking about like, oh, what can I do with Burning Man next year? But like, how about thinking of going back to where you're living and doing some, bringing Burning Man back to your area or getting involved. Uh, I mean, there's Burners Without Borders.
Absolutely.
There's all sorts of things you can
Yeah.
get involved with
Yeah.
like in your own area. Um. Yeah. So what is the status of Africa Burn now? Are you still like working with Africa Burn or like you there's no?
No, no, no. I was fired from AfrikaBurn.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
in July last year. Yes.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
No, thank you.
Oh.
Um, I can giggle about it now.
Wait, we worked for this what 16 years and
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so I mean, it's for me, it's a useful, almost mytho-poetic moment where um, a co-founder of a movement that has its taproot in anarchy gets fired for gross insubordination. Um,
wow, you didn't follow the
I
rules.
yeah yeah yeah.
Wow.
I reached burnout in 2023, no, 2022, after COVID and the move to the new land. But it had been a very, very, very intense many years. And having been the first full-time coordinator of everything, there was a legacy of kind of encoded in job descriptions and kind of what I did, which my plate was too full.
Hmm.
And there was this moment of trying to narrow down what I was doing, but at the same time it was COVID, so we kind of got rid of we had to retrench everyone. I was also retrenched. I was also retrenched, but we were then on a kind of but basically the workload instead of getting smaller was getting bigger. Plus, the challenges were astounding with COVID regulations, with no money, with moving to the new land. It was astounding. I mean, having to do three town plans, having to do all the kind of statutory. Anyway, I fell to my knees. I was burnt out. I was completely burnt out. And I was put on a sabbatical. Um, and as part of the sabbatical, one of the interpretations that happened was that I was not to attend the event in 2023.
Really?
Yeah. And I really, really, really desperately wanted to attend the event. So I tried to comply. I sat at home crying for a good um,
Hmm.
couple of days. And then eventually I I borrowed a friend's car and I snuck in because obviously I knew the security systems and I wore a big mask to show that I wasn't there. So I snuck in for 36 hours, hugged everyone I loved, and then left. And then a year later, they found out and they fired me for such. Obviously, there's more to the
Right?
story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
It's,
But yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
did you go
Um,
this
it's
year?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do. I love the burn. I absolutely love
Uh,
it. I I volunteered on the clan, which is our version of the man. And I love doing the large scale construction. I've done a lot of building of artworks through the
mhm.
years. And
Well, is it more enjoyable actually, like not being the like organizer and just kind of like making your own art and
yeah.
taking,
I mean that was why I wanted to go in 23. I was just like, I've never ever been to the burn without the yoke of responsibility.
yeah.
Um, I and so I just wanted to have long conversations and actually, dance all night and, you know, get
Actually
silly.
experience it than work
Yeah.
it. Like, yeah.
Also, the other thought that might was quite exciting was actually sleeping a little bit.
I gotta tell you, for everyone out there, sleeping is so underrated.
I know.
Uh,
So yeah, but I mean, look, for me, the biggest story is that for me, what happened to me is a symptom of what I believe is a inappropriate organizational structure that was then instituted. And I believe, from what I know from the side, is that I believe that that's the same story at Burning Man, is that there's quite a top-down hierarchical organizational structure
mhm.
that was instituted at AfrikaBurn, and it led to a lot of conflict, and a lot of conflict centered around me because I was saying I don't think that this is appropriate for a cultural movement. Because it's interesting finding the sweet spot between achieving organizational kind of like just the optimal amount of structure to hold this chaotic space, right?
Yeah.
It's such a fine-tuned thing to kind of twiddle the knobs to the degree that you are not being top down. Because as I said earlier, the taproot is in anarchy, and those principles are fundamentally important, the self-organization. And Larry always talked about the irony of like starting this thing with its taproot in anarchy, and then you end up becoming the fuzz and like policing people, which is not a comfortable space to be
Yeah.
if you are fundamentally an anarchist. Um, and an anarchist not being the kind of like classic punk throwing a Molotov cocktail, but a proper one, which is the governance from the bottom up.
Hmm, hmm.
And so a lot of the consultative processes had started leaching out of the AfrikaBurn structure, and I was not happy about it, and it led to a lot of internal conflict. Um,
Why do you think that was? I mean, was it just kind of a necessary thing for because things just happen that way, or was it kind of more directed?
you mean the changing of the organizational structure?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a matter of interpretation because the fundamental goal that they were trying to achieve was to achieve more accountability and more transparency, which are excellent goals. That's a great thing to do. That's not a problem with it. It's just the way that they wanted to achieve that. For me, I could see that there were problems coming down the line in terms of accountability to the community and consultation with the community. So, and I think we did everything on committees and we had a lot of town halls and we had a lot of community consultation around everything. and it's not efficient. It's a hell of a lot of work,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
but efficiency is not our metric, That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to create that scaffolding that holds the space for a magical, renegade, experimental, keep the radical in it, things to happen. It's not going, oh, well, we create a space and we put big art and we wear blinky lights. No, that's not what it is. It's something from the bottom up. Um, and so that's and so kind of what ended up happening is that then there was a whole kind of way of electing directors, and currently a lot of the directors, and I think that this played into my story, is that a lot of the directors don't even know me. Um, and there was narrative built around me, and so there's a lack of kind of checks and balances around these things. It's kind of using default world metrics for something that is not
Yeah.
supposed to be default world, and finding the optimal amount of that kind of, and I, and I'm going to just put my neck out on this, but I don't think that as far as I know the structure at Burning Man, I also don't think that it's necessarily absolutely appropriate for a cultural movement either. Like the CEO model for me doesn't make sense. Why does one person have that much power? And my disclaimer is I don't know Marion, so I don't it's not necessarily about the individual. It's in
The
fact it's
structure.
completely not
Yeah.
it's not about the individual at all. It's about the structure, and not having enough checks and balances within that. And so you lose things like institutional knowledge. You lose stuff like um yeah, just kind of the kind of holding the cultural and philosophical center. Um, and yeah, so that was my experience, and it's fine. I mean, like for me, it was an extremely painful experience to go through, but so I don't necessarily trust the processes that took place to lead me where I am, but I do trust the universe that I need to move on to something new. So
Yeah. Well, one question it almost seems like there's a certain like life cycle to Burns to Burning Man itself. To like, I mean, people get involved. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not quite like as simple as like overwork, like and then burnout, but I don't know. I mean, whether it's like a theme camp or like an art car or like running a regional or anything like that, like I think there's a kind of like a life cycle, and then like at a certain point, um, you kind of graduate, and you move on,
totally, yeah,
you move on
yeah,
to, but it's like you don't just like leave it behind, right? Because you take like
oh,
those lessons
absolutely,
with you, and you just kind of
totally.
evolve and make like a different opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
No, I mean it's as it's supposed to be. It is life changing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so how about for you for now? I mean, it's, you were heavily involved with AfrikaBurn for 16 years, and this
Mhm.
happened. But what's next for you? I mean, how are you gonna take those lessons and transform into something else?
Well, very very initially, we've been working on a movie. In fact, we started working on the movie
Oh, yeah.
about 9 years ago, um, with a fantastic maverick renegade woman called Jeanette de Villiers, who was a volunteer on our theme camp committee. And every time kind of we were talking about issues or things like that, I would be telling stories, and she was like, "Oh my God, these are stories that are so great. We've got to tell the background story. We've got to capture more of what the kind of essence behind the burn is, not the kind of like mediagenic kind of festy gear insta look. And so we started working on this movie. She pushed that ball up a hill in a big, big way. But now that I'm set free from AfrikaBurn organization, I like to distinguish between the organization and the actual community because I'm deeply immersed in the community, which is what the real burn is, like the org is it should be a detail. Um,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
obviously it was a huge part of my life. But anyway, so we're
yeah.
working on this movie, trying to raise funds for it now. And so it's been through many iterations. And currently it's a story, yeah, and this is where it is. It's a story of evolution. It's a story of what happens to social movements, for want of a better term, when elements of them become corporatized. It's not an expose at all. It's a deeply philosophical and anthropological piece. And we hope that and we're gonna ask questions basically, because a good question is like a portal into another way of thinking. And so that's what the movie is about. And we've got a treasure trove of footage. I think it's fantastic.
Wow.
Um, and it's also been quite a processive time for me, kind of reviewing all the footage, interviews with myself and Robert and Paul and everyone from
Yeah,
2000 and
yeah.
2007,
Well, it's funny because when you're talking about the draft thing, like the whole time we were talking about it, my mind, I was just like, I hope you got pictures of that, because
Totally,
I know
yeah.
like every time I do something where I'm just like, yeah, I'm just like I never get pictures of it because it's like I'm usually the one taking the pictures, and it'll just live
Yeah,
on in memory, and people are like that was so wonderful, but no, it's
yeah,
amazing that you could you'd have some saved footage from that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I guess we'll on to the second question. Like, so what's your background? Like before you met Burning Man, like, it's like, what was your life? Like, where'd you grow up and what was
So
your,
I grew up in Pretoria, which is the capital city of South Africa. Um, during apartheid, I was born in the 70s in 72.
oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's it was extremely challenging to live in a very big sea of conservatism in the only kind of creative hippie enclave that existed in Pretoria. So my
Yeah.
parents were in the theatre. My father was a playwright and director. My mom an actress.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was a very interesting for me. I grew up witnessing art as activism. So art was in everything, and I also went to the Waldorf school. So and a lot of the medium through which they teach is creative and artistic. So for me, when I arrived at Burning Man, it wasn't like, oh wow, this has opened up my creative world. It was more like a confirmation. It was like, this is how it's supposed to be. It was
I've been
so
training for this. Yeah.
it was like, oh, look, everything that I know on scale. And beautiful and whimsical and fun and playful and the I really, I think that the physical harshness combined with beauty of the desert is such a key element as well, because access to wilderness is so important. So yeah, I grew up in conservative Pretoria, in the hippie enclave,
Hmm.
um, watching people make anti-apartheid statements through art, the classic trickster formula. Um, but a desperate time, watching structures that are not that are absolutely brutal and horrendous, and I'm a white person living in South Africa, so it's easier for me. But the watching that injustice and doing whatever tiny thing you could do to counteract it. And certainly theatre and art was the way. And, so we were in a big kind of artist community. But it was quite interesting that it was completely dominated by conservatism. And then the counterpoint to that was that I used to spend a hell of a lot of time in the bush, um, in the African bush. Pretty much we were there for a couple months every year. And so I'm very, very comfortable in the wilderness. And And then so when I left school, I wanted to become a pilot. So I did my pilot's license, and
Wow.
then I moved to the bush, and I was a game ranger for a while, and then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then the local Sangoma, which is like a African shaman, she threw the bones, and she said, "No, you need to move to the big water." She'd never been to the ocean, and so I moved to Cape Town because I got offered a job 2 weeks later. And so I thought, well, I should just listen to Maria. And so I moved to Cape Town, and I was just au pairing actually. And then but also in a very Cape Town was always a much more liberal place in South Africa during those dark days. And actually it was 94. It was liberation year. It was when Mandela became president.
What year was
And
that?
he became president in 94.
94. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I moved to Cape Town and I started working on a an event that my cousin had started called the Mother City Queer Projects. Um, and they were celebrating the new constitution. We now had the best constitution in the world. Um, and while they had been marching for gay rights all these years, we were now just celebrating all the rights. So it was an event, again, art based
Hmm.
and designed around all the non-ageist, non-sexist, non-racist, non-blah blah blah, and really pushing queer culture. Um, and so that was my taproot into that was my foundation of large events. Even though I'd seen my parents, organizing and mobilizing
Hmm.
around productions, etc., my whole life. Um,
Is queer culture like accepted in South Africa, or what's the relationship
yeah,
like?
pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
look, they
'Cause you said it was kind of a conservative country, well, at least during apartheid era, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's. I mean, compared to other African countries, and compared to it's. I mean, legally, the foundation is laid as absolutely
hmm.
100%. On point. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, you still get a lot of bigotry here and there. But it's largely accepted. But people are still marching and still. There's always work to do. There's always work to do. At the time we were using the word queer as an alternative turn of thought, not necessarily about kind of gayness or queerness or whatever, like sexual preference style,
Hmm.
but as just a mindset. Um, and we would go to all the factories and we'd collect waste and we would challenge artists to make art out of waste, and then we would change the whole environments. And the key also was completely different genres. Um,
Huh.
so there was something for everybody: big band music, rock, trance, all the different genres. I mean, these days there's so many. I don't know. I think we would have enough rooms for them. Um, disco.
So by
Um,
the time you even made it to Burning Man, it's like you're a pilot, you're a bush ranger, you've been or helping to organize these queer events, the artistic stuff. So it's like you're ready. It seems
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like so.
And I
Okay,
and I was and I was studying at the University of Cape Town. I did environmental science and social anthropology.
wow. Well, it kind of
Um,
gets me to my last question, like the what is the impact and the influence of Burning Man on your life, but seems like you were kind of already kind of mostly there by the time you even stepped foot in the desert.
and no, there were elements. I mean, through the 16 years of doing what I did on AfrikaBurn, I have learned vast, vast, vast amounts and met the best humans in the world. And it's just deeply, deeply solidified my understanding of so many things, and certainly that they're fundamentals, which I know now on such a deep level, which is that the open source model is an abundance model. It's if you want to make change, or if you want to do anything, empower people. That's what you do. You create the platform, you create the space. That's the only thing you need to do. And governments need to learn that, is that you don't need to start programs that do this or that or whatever. I mean, you can, but your job is not to create jobs. Your job is to create the space in which stuff can flower, which stuff can grow. You know, that if that for me is, I always use the soil analogy. Your only job, it's a permaculture principle as well. Your job is to create the soil in which shit can grow. And don't get too attached to the outcome. Um, anyone can do anything. And there is such strength in collaboration, and creativity is collaboration. It's different elements coming in, but an openness to that. and that there's an optimal, absolutely key is that there's an optimal amount of structure that doesn't crush something, but that enables it. So I've had a 15-year, 16-year experience in creating enabling environment and enabling in a good way, enabling in creating fertile soil. Um, and yeah,
So
and
is that
God, and no, and also the strength of fun and play. Play and fun are such amazing amplifiers, and they are so fundamentally important that time of irreverence, that time of, also how important ephemerality is that it's important for it to be a short, sharp shock of that experience.
yeah.
Even if you're in the desert for a month, because a lot of people come out of the desert, they're like, why can't AfrikaBurn be the whole year long? And I'm like, absolutely not. No ways. There's no fucking chance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also you don't want to be like formulaic, like we were talking about like corporate stayed formulaic, it's just like it's like you can buy it
Yeah,
in a shelf in a 12 pack, shrink wrapped, I mean,
yeah,
is that really what you want? So
yeah.
I
But it's
mean,
also,
even
yeah. No,
uh,
carry on. Yeah.
I was gonna say like even with like the hardships and uh challenges, it's like you still come back. Like why is that?
Oh God, because it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, because the org is just a piece of the scaffolding that holds the whole thing up, The community are so important. I mean, it's when I was in that extremely challenging scenario in 2023, it was very, very distinct for me. That was the learning in that moment for me was how I was sitting there, and it may sound dramatic, but I was feeling brutalized by the organization. I'd like, no matter what I said or did, there was nothing I could do to change their minds. And they were not able to hear me. And then the community mobilized and they were like, you cannot not let Monique come. And they didn't listen to them. And they listened to a tiny, small handful of people who didn't want me there. And so that was what I was sitting there, was listening to that. But then the tidal wave of love that came from the community to me, that's real. That was the real story. I it was incredible. And that's because I've worked so closely with the creative community my whole AfrikaBurn life. Um, and that's the real alchemical gold, is
Oh
that when you're
yeah.
toiling in the desert next to each other and you making shit happen, and it's like that's the cauldron in which that's where we make the magic.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and that's why I keep going. I mean, there's no way that I'll never go. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I mean that I always kind of say it's like, community is our secret sauce, like that's the thing that I think people go through such incredible hardships and just like why do you keep going back? Why do you do this to yourself? It's like it's the community. It's like when they say it's like, oh, you're
Mm.
coming home. It's like coming home to what? Like an abusive family? It's like no. Like
Sometimes it can be.
but they're fun, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wow. Um, hey, so if anybody wants to reach out to you or get a hold of you, like, do you have, how would you like people to contact you if you want them to contact you? Like an email or whatever.
Um, I've got a Burning Man email address, which is monique.schiess. That's Schiess, Schiess, um, at burningman.org. Um, if you're interested in the documentary, the current working title is called From Ashes. And that email address is from ashes 2007 at gmail.com. Also on Instagram is from ashes.africaburn.documentary. Um, yeah, and my Instagram handle is also just Monique Schiess. Um, I
So
think
for
that's about
Instagram,
it.
you said it was like from.ashes.afrikaburn.documentary.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Instagram. Okay. I'm just making my notes.
Currently, there's a Backer Buddy campaign, but I'm sure that'll be done by the time
Well, this is going to
um,
come out, yeah,
in
September
September. Yeah,
1st, but
we might even have finished the film by then.
really?
Yeah,
Wow. Well, we'll have to keep in touch because if you do, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview, and I can't wait to watch the movie.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and review it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. The more reviews the show has, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Also, please tell a friend and share this show with anyone that you think might like it. Word of mouth reaches quite far, especially in the Burning Man community. If you would like to contact us, please send an email to shadowofthemanpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Shadow of the Man on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, and YouTube. The links for all of these are available at shadowoftheman.com. Feel free to use any of these social media accounts to provide any feedback you might have. Your thoughts on the show are greatly appreciated. Thank you, and see you soon for a new episode of The Shadow of the Man.
Thank you for listening to this latest show. We have to make another one, so gotta go. Don't worry, for next month we already have one in the can. Very soon you'll be listening to a new Shadow of the Man.